All right. Hello, everyone. And my name is Pam Le Noury. I am one of Noble Caledonia's expedition leaders. And we have with us here Sue Forbes. Now, Sue Forbes is our top field photographer. And she's actually won Wildlife Photographer of the World of the Year, which I'll come back to. But before being a runaway adventurer on the boats with us, Sue was actually in the military. She was in the Royal Air Force as an engineer officer, which I would have been terrified if I was working below you, Sue, I'm sure. I'm sure you were very, very strict on everyone and efficient and professional as you are with everything. And then after that, you were in Silicon Valley on the business side of things. So I know you've had a huge amount of global experience before you ran away to adventure at sea with us, and you've been taking photos all throughout. But what I wanted to ask about, I know your amazing photo that you took that won you one of the Wildlife Photographer of the Year awards was taken on the island sky in the Indian Ocean. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can. So it was a few years ago, and I was out in the Indian Ocean, and we were sailing from island to island, and I decided I wanted to try and capture flying fish that were being hunted by the red-footed boobies. So they were up above the boat and they were coming down. And so I spent hours and hours, and you were EL, and I remember you commenting, hours and hours out on deck trying to get the shot. And I would wake up early in the morning, and one early morning I basically popped my head out about 5 o'clock, looked out, and it was nice and calm, and I thought, this may be the chance. So I actually have a photo of it.
Please, I was hoping you could show us.
So why don't I show you that one?
Thanks. I have to say, all of the staff with the camera have spent hours and hours trying to get these kinds of shots, and we've all got shots of boobies, pursuing flying fish. But this one was just an absolute winner. It's a spectacular with the reflection of the bird on the water. It's amazing. How did you choose that one? I mean, you must have taken thousands on the bow, and I was just worried about your skin in the sun for so many hours. How did you choose that one though?
So it was interesting actually, because I thought that the one I would pick, the boobies come down, and obviously as you see the flying fish is right there and they're trying to catch it. And I thought one of the ones I would pick would be as the bird caught the fish and they have to toss it up in the air to swallow it. And I thought that would be the one I would pick. But when I was going through them, I found this one sort of created this anticipation. You don't know if it caught it or not. Or maybe I won't say.
Yeah.
So in the end, this was the one that I picked.
Yeah, well, so cool and so deserved. I love the streaks on the water that the flying fish is leaving behind. It's a really a great action shot. So well done. Now, it sort of seems like a bit of a come down that you are this amazing global wildlife photographer and award winning and all this stuff, to be going from all of that to what we're going to do today, which is slightly scraping the barrel because everyone's in lockdown, which is in your house photography of your pet. So thanks for humoring this all, and I'm really looking forward to
also people. So
yes, people, yeah, and humans. Yes. Well, we're all stuck indoors at the moment, so it's actually the perfect time to get these kinds of tips to work on around our own houses. And aren't we lucky to have someone with your expertise to tell us? So thanks, Sue. Thanks for taking this on for us.
So yeah, I mean, I thought while we're all at home, some of us are lucky enough to be sharing our homes with other people, and some people also have pets, and I thought it'd be a good chance to talk about that. And I'm not going to make it complicated. So most of us have phones.
Yeah.
So I've got a Android. Yeah, there we go. We all have phones. I've got an Android phone and a iPhone, and I'm going to use the iPhone today as an example on how to do this. And the reason I'm going to use the iPhone is they're pretty much the same between both the Android and the iPhone. So it's a nice sort of combination of being able to do it. And they have some really interesting features. So what I thought I would do is my husband's here today, and he's very kindly agreed to be a model. And I think, oh, here he comes. He's just about to go out for a bike ride. So he's all dressed to go for a bike ride. Hello, Joel.
Oh, hi, Joel.
So I'm going to get him to sit over here. And before I take a photograph of him, a couple of things to think about. So one is obviously where you put your person to be able to get the shot. You think about the light. Obviously, I've got nice Californian sunshine coming in today. And then you think about what the background is. And inside, that's hard. So it's quite hard to do that. So I'm actually going to now share my phone, and let me just do that. Here we go. All right.
Sue,
Okay.
I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but you have like 35,455 unread emails, eh?
Yeah, you can tell this is my spare phone. I don't actually open it up and look at my email. That would be quite horrifying if I did actually have that many. All right. So down the bottom, you've got the old camera button. So here we go. There's my nice California day. And
oh, wow, that's gorgeous there.
So here we go, Joel. He's just going to sit here, and I'm going to hit portrait mode. So I just move it over to portrait mode, and I'm going to get in, relatively close in there. And okay, Joel, look at me. Yeah, there we go. Nice smile. All right. Thank you very much, my model. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing this now.
So is that the newer? Mine doesn't have portrait mode. I think mine's a really old iPhone, but I think most of the newer ones have it.
Yeah, so it is the new ones. They do have it. So if you see on the back of the new cameras or the new phones, they have these multiple cameras, basically multiple lenses here.
Yeah.
And that enables you to be able to do some quite interesting things.
Because that was really nice. It looked like it blurred the background a little bit and focused on his face. That was pretty good effect.
Well, let's actually go in and look at that photograph. So I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so that's the photo I just took.
Yeah.
So there we go. And a couple of things about it. So down the bottom here, you see I've got it on natural light. So a couple of features that these iPhones have is that you can actually change, and this is post the photograph. I can turn this into like stage lighting. I can turn it into mono, there's all sorts of.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know all these things were there on the newer phones. This was amazing.
I know, isn't it interesting? I mean, that looks quite nice, doesn't it?
Just out of interest, which model have you got?
This one's an XS, so it's a couple of years old. It's not the newest.
I thought his name was Joel. No, I'm just joking.
So I'm going to leave it on natural light, but you were commenting about the blurred background, and that is actually one of the really nice features with both Android and the iPhones, with the newer phones, that you can change even post. So right at the top here, you see the F number. So I just turned it to F. And now at the bottom, you see all those figures. So I can actually change that. So a lot of photographs would normally look like this. You see the background, and it's a bit distracting. I've got those books and the mirror and all sorts of things. Yeah. And remember, I'm doing this after I've taken the photo. So if I go all the way the other way, look at that. So it blurs out the background.
Okay.
And you can do this after the fact, and then just select done. So a nice way to be able to do portrait photography.
Sue, this is so funny because I was thinking exactly that. I was thinking, strange, Sue's not picking a plain background, because normally you have to go to all the trouble to find a really plain wall or a plain, background that's not too distracting, blah, blah, blah. I was like exactly thinking that before you took the photo, and now I see why.
Yeah, and so that's the nice thing, that basically, in our houses, we often don't have. I mean, I live in Silicon Valley, small house, not much wall space. I put lots of photographs up. So it means most people, it's difficult to find a good background. So now you can just take the photograph and afterwards you can resolve the background.
Fair enough. Yeah, great. So, okay, so that's a really nice portrait of Joel, and that was a really great skill on the iPhone, but just walk us through how all the steps to get that particularly nice portrait again.
Okay, so that's a good question, actually, because we do tend to rush through some of those. So basically what I did is I got Joel to sit down and I picked the location depending on the light. And that's going to be affected by the time of day and where the light is coming from. So I wanted the light coming in from outside, but I positioned myself slightly in front of him and slightly next to him. So the light was falling across his face, rather than it being really straight on. So that's the first thing. Lighting is almost everything in photography.
So you want those little shadows and things. You don't want it dead straight. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so you do, because head straight basically gives you dark bits in the eyes, and it's a little bland. But if you get the side lighting, almost like I've got a little bit right now, is you get more the features of somebody, and you actually do want a little bit of a shadow from the nose and the eyes and the things.
Okay,
so it's good to have that.
Okay.
So that's lighting. Next thing is position. So obviously I just told Joel to sit down, but then what I did is rather than standing above him, so upright, that would be, you could do that, but it basically makes them look, it makes them look sort of almost like compassionate. So often sometimes that can work well with children when you have them looking up slightly to the camera. Then the alternate for that is really, really low when you're positioning up towards somebody like this. And in that instance, they look dominant. So they're sort of looking down at you. Now, obviously for this photo, I wanted a more casual photo. So I got down pretty much at the same level as Joel. So right there at that eye level.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I did is, rather than come round to the front of him, I just asked him to turn his head. So, and that produces it breaks the shoulder line.
Yeah.
And allows you to get that sort of nice side angle.
Yeah, because I always think of a portrait like I'm going to do square from the front, like we are positioned now, like from the front. But I noticed you were at an angle and then you asked him to turn his head. And okay, so that was the whole thinking behind that. Yeah, okay, thanks.
Yeah. And the last thing was, I didn't worry, and we talked about this, too much about the background, because I knew that I could do something about that afterwards. Okay. But if you're worried about that, then the other thing to do is to think about the background. And if it's cluttered, the further you get the person away from the background, the less sort of confusing and intrusive it is. So either doing that blurring thing or get the person further away from the background. Okay, are the two things there.
It's nice because sometimes you see a person in just the right moment, but there's so much noise going on around in the background. So you think, oh, well, I'm not going to take the shot because, it's going to be a messy photo. But that was great. Cool. Okay, so now some of us don't have other people in the house with us. Some of us have other furry friends around. Let's talk about those guys, which aren't usually as cooperative as Joel was.
Yeah, so pets are a great thing. We all love to look at people's pet shots, but it's tough to do. So actually the first thing is, you say when you don't have another person, but if you're lucky enough to have another person as well as a pet, that's the first thing. So having a handler. So in other words, someone who may be, holding, I have a cat, not in the room here. I'm in my office at the moment. So
I'm sure your cat will cooperate fully with this.
Oh, yes, I'm sure. Probably not. But anyway, so bringing the toys out that they might like, and the handler can hold that so that they can have the cat or the dog facing you and catch their eye. So they would be like right behind you, the handler. Or they might actually have to, move the pet. So number one, handler. That's a good idea. And then obviously the next thing is if they don't cooperate, you have to go to the pet. And that's using the sort of how the pet, tends to move around during the day. There are sometimes places where they like, and it's a great way to be able to get the shot. So in other words, going to them rather than, because if you pick a pet up and drag it towards you, particularly if it's a cat, less so if a dog, they don't tend to like that.
Well, the problem I normally have is like, as you want to take the photo, they look away. It's like they're camera shy or something, my dog.
That's where the handler comes in. Okay. Definitely very helpful. And then if you don't have the handler, then it's the one-handed shot where I've got a small camera here, where you're holding the camera and holding the treat. So that you're actually, and I've often had to do that kind of thing, and you're literally ready. So you're looking through and you're holding the treat and you're trying to get them to look up. Sometimes little sounds work, just to get their attention.
Yeah.
So then the next thing is, it's similar in some ways to the portraits. You think about light, obviously much harder because the pet is where it is. So you often can't move around. Second thing is where you stand. So in other words, we often tend to do as you said with portrait, you basically stand there and you take your photograph. Well, with a pet, you really want to get down to eye level. Absolutely want to get down to eye level. That's creates the best thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
And then obviously there are specific things depending on what you're using. So if you're using your phone, then you could use the portrait mode that we just tried. You could also just use normal mode. And remember that when you press the shutter button on your phone, if you keep pressing it, it will do multi-shot. Okay. So you get, multiple shots. So that increases your chances of actually getting a good shot.
The one, yeah.
One out of the many.
Yeah. You said earlier, people love to see your pet photos. I'm like, no, I think it's the other way around. Everyone who's got pets is like wanting to show everyone their pet photos all the time. And people are like, oh no, I don't want to look at her dog photos anymore. So it's important to just narrow it down to the one.
Yes. And that's where, getting, a nice characteristic is a nice way to do that. If you're going to use a camera rather than a phone, then the setting, which is often on one of these top dials, is the sports mode. I often call it that running man mode.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that one?
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. Running man, that's what it looks like. So you put it on that, and that will mean your camera is in the best sort of way to be able to take the pet photography. If you're beyond that, in other words, you're a more advanced user, then you'll want to also move that dial until it's on a shutter priority, which is often on some cameras S, some cameras TV, so the Canon is TV.
Okay.
And then you want to put that shutter at about 1,000th of a second, so nice and fast. So you'll want to look for lots of light to be able to do that.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Because otherwise you'll get really noisy photographs. Okay, so now's the moment where we're going to see if it'll actually work.
That could go wrong.
Yeah, I'm going to try the treats actually. Well, he is reacting. I can see him. He's in the other room. So my cat is called Flash.
Oh, nice.
We got him at a rescue center. Come on, Flash. Oh, yes.
I can't believe we're going to get this on video, a cat responding to commands. For the first time, real live footage.
There we go. So the treats have worked.
Sweet.
And so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen here. All right.
Okay, I've got it.
There we go. So now I'm getting down at eye level. Okay, Flash, I presume you are not going to sit there cooperatively. Let's try a couple more treats.
She's not going to do this without a fight.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to, these are not the best shots because of him eating, but Flash, I'm going to take one just to show you Flash, what it's like. Hey, Flash. Hello.
Oh, yeah.
So this is what it's like pretty much with pet photography.
Yeah.
You'll pretty much get, you know,
You really
some
need a
little
handler there, Sue.
Yeah, I think I need a
If
handler.
only Joel hadn't gone off of that cycle.
Yeah, that's right. So let's go into the gallery. So you see I took quite a few photographs there.
Okay.
I wouldn't say there were any that are particularly good winners here.
Oh, the second last one, you got the eyes, maybe just cut off the ears. That one could work.
But you see this one here that I'm not gonna,
the high angle one.
The high angle one, you see how much more boring that is versus having it with the low angle here.
Yeah.
When you're really down there looking at it.
Yeah.
So that sort of shows you the difference between those two. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you might have a pet too, actually.
Yes, and actually, you know, in all those Zoom conferences where you see people are just wearing their suits from the sort of the waist upwards, and what they're hiding below camera is that they're not wearing any, you know, like pants or anything. Or what I'm usually hiding below camera is Huey. So he's normally there, like really loves sitting in my lap. So on cue, dogs, as you can see, are much more cooperative.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, it's yeah, pretty cooperative.
So the best thing for that then, you know, when you really want to get the pet and their owner, a nice way is actually, if you bring Huey maybe up towards your face, and I'll get a couple of shots here. Oh, he's going to love that. There we go. So that moment where you had him and he licks you there, that's one of the points is actually with pets. You know, there's a moment that you want to capture, and that's where the multi-shot, you could hear I was doing click, 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 and that's because I'm taking multiple shots. So
we haven't got him COVID-19 trained yet, but since we're all just self-isolating here, I think we're okay with the, the close contact.
Yeah, that's right. That's definitely right. So, you know, as you can see.
Yeah, so I suppose it's like capturing those moments. And those were the ones you'd probably want for yourself down the line, is those real little gem interactions between you and your pet.
It's actually interesting because we've had, you know, two examples here, one where Flash didn't cooperate. Let me show you a couple of images just to sort of bring out some of the final points here. So obviously it takes time to get good shots,
yeah.
or you get the moment. Now, I don't know about everybody else, but I find Flash, I think he likes the Amazon boxes that we all get more than any of the little toys he has around the house. So so that's a good sort of thing to watch out for, is like, what do they like? Then, you know, often this is what I was talking about, you know, where he will sleep and you get that sort of, you know, he's sort of looking at you upside down and you just capture the moment. And these are all taken with the phone, so they're not taken with fancy cameras. And then this one, which I did take with a camera, but this is one where obviously he's outside. I don't have grass inside. But here, you know, it required a little more patience, and I had to sort of wait to capture the moment. I used that blurred background technique that we've talked about. So you can make that F number For those of you who are sort of more advanced, you'd be on aperture priority, so A or AB, and make that F number, 2.8, 4.5, something around about that. So that's doing that nicely blurred
And
background.
did you have your handler Joel dressed up as a giant mouse just in that one section of the garden for this shot?
No, that time, unfortunately, I was without handler for this one, but it kind of shows you the difference in terms of, if you wait patiently. So,
okay, yeah.
So those are some sort of shots. And obviously with wildlife, it's a lot harder to get it like we were just seeing.
A lot of people with cats, the cat will always go sit on some sunny windowsill, and you might want to take a photo of the cat in that context of its favorite sunny windowsill. But it's always a bit hard with, it's usually the sun's beaming in when the cat's sitting there, and you'd love to take that photo, but the sun's streaming in behind it, so the lighting angle is wrong. Do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, so that's a really good point, because they do have those spots where they like. So the first thing would be try and, rather than from behind where you're having the cat, because often they're looking out as well. You would actually, if the cat's here, you would actually get around like you're right next to the pane of glass. And then you would get that side angle light.
Okay.
So that's the most ideal, because you want to use that natural light that's coming in the window. So you want to try and get like right next to the glass.
Okay.
Try and get until you be a.
And the nice thing with your phone is you can actually, even if it's a little nook, you can actually sort of sneak in there with your phone.
Yes, you can. You're absolutely right. Yeah, the phone is really, really good for that. The other thing is, if you can't get in, then think about the time of day, or put a light on inside, because that can create some light sort of to counteract a little bit. You would still need the outside light is very, very bright. You would still need to counteract it quite a lot. And then last thing, use the flash. But that's difficult, because you're going to have to be slightly to the side, or otherwise you're going to get that flash bomb on the window.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's the last one.
Thanks, Sue. And then I have one last idea, which is, again, everyone's at home, and it's probably a good time as ever to start to take a few photos inside your house. I know, loads of people might load up photos of their house, just if not to share with friends, then for their own memories, or some people put them on Airbnb or something. Have you got any good, just general tips for inside your house photography? To turn the lights on or not, flash or angles and all that stuff.
Yeah, so I think the first thing is definitely lighting. So depending on your room, then it's all about the lighting. So you want to sort of think about what's the best time of day for when you get the good lighting to come into that room. So that's the first thing. And it's worth you waiting till that right time of day, actually, rather than trying to take it at another time.
Yeah.
Second thing is in terms of where you position yourself. So, for example, you might want to go, if you want to make a space look larger, then you would pick something, an object, to get a little close into and almost come from below. So it was back to that dominant thing I was talking about.
So like I say, a vase in the foreground.
Yeah, and then it makes the whole thing look a lot larger. And if you're trying to make the space look smaller, then you actually want to get on a step or on a chair or something in the corner and be looking down into the space. And that can make it look a little bit smaller. So you'll be able to get more in as well.
Yeah.
So,
you can't use too much panorama, because then the room will sort of become a little bit rainbow shaped. But you could, if it was a big room, you could panorama a little bit to get it all in.
Yes, you can try panorama, yes, to get it in, but you have to be careful, as you say. You get that, that curvature if you're not careful.
Too much, yeah. And then the funniest, and there's so many funny bloopers of this, you can find them online, is people trying to take photos of something. Maybe they're selling something in their house, or they're taking a photo of their room, for like Airbnb, and then they catch themselves in the mirrors or in the reflections. And there's so many funny ones, like they're hardly even dressed, and they're end up in their online posts, in like half disarray in the mirror, like it reflects in the mirror or reflected in a wardrobe glass or something. It's so funny. So that's definitely something you need to look out for.
Yeah, so that's like watching the background is like when you look at the photograph, and often if you're, with a phone, you can actually see, or an LCD display, you can see what you're going to take the photograph of. So that's that classic, I say, the four corners check, actually looking around the photograph to check, what have I actually got in my photograph? Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah. Or the funniest I've seen is people trying to sell mirrors, and how they take a photo of the mirror they're trying to sell without being in the photograph. There's some really funny stuff out there. It's worth Googling. Anyway, Sue, thanks so much for your time. I know you're probably not particularly busy adventuring at the moment like all of us, but it's really nice of you to be able to give us all those tips. Some of the stuff seems fairly basic, but there's a lot of little things behind the scenes that, you have just the natural touch, which I know just a huge difference. When you take a photograph of the same thing that I take of, and yours comes out like an award-winning shot, and mine usually comes out as evidence.
Yeah, I find that practice over time is the thing, because then, as we talked about, sometimes when I take a portrait, I'm doing things without even thinking about it, and that's where practice comes out. So,
and those like 10 little steps all just always are happening for you, where for me it's just like beep, beep, and I'm like, well, anyway. So thanks so much for your time. I'm sure a lot of people will recognize you from their trips, and hoping to see you again back out there one of these days. And they'll all appreciate these tips as well, since we have the time to play. So
thanks
so much.
And, thanks, Pam. And obviously, everybody stay safe, stay home, and we'll see everybody out on the ocean on the skyships pretty soon. So thanks very much for doing this for us, Pam.
Great. All right. Have a good day. Bye, Sue.
Bye-bye.